Hey guys, Scott here. This is week 3 that we're talking about spiritual disciplines. Previously we talked about the Sabbath and how important the Sabbath is in our life, taking that one day a week and really trusting in God, resting in God, reconnecting to Him. And then last week we talked about confession and how valuable confession is as a discipline, to regularly practice that, to live in the light of freedom that Jesus gives us. But today we're going to enter into what I think might be the most difficult. This for me is probably the hardest spiritual discipline to regularly practice and to do it well. And that is silence and stillness. See, that is quieting our souls before God. As we know, the world around us is not quiet. It's loud. There are competing voices for our attention, for our time, let alone our own voice that probably talks too much. At least mine does. But actually, in the silence, in the stillness, something is going on. God is regularly trying to talk to us. Each day, He wants to talk to us. But how often do we hear Him? With so many voices in so many different directions, it's very hard to hear the voice of God. In 1 Kings 19, the prophet Elijah was encountered by the word of the Lord, which is the pre-incarnate Christ. Not going into that, but he was encountered to go and hear the voice of God. He didn't really want to at this point in time, but Elijah stood up, he went outside, and a strong wind came. He did not hear the voice of God. Then an earthquake happened. Elijah still did not hear the voice of God. And then a fire happened, and he did not hear the voice of God. It was through a whisper, a gentle whisper, that Elijah heard the voice of God. Some translations say silence. See, it was through the silence when Elijah could hear God. How often do we find ourselves like Elijah, trying to listen through the wind or the earthquake or the fire, all these competing voices and noises around us rather than listening in the silence? There's a journal that I've recently been going through. It's called a Lectio Divina Journal. It's a prayerful way to walk through Scripture. But on the very first page, this stuck out to me. It says, for any friendship to deepen, there are essential characteristics that need to be in operation. One such characteristic is listening. Real friends listen to each other. Really listen. How often are we listening to the voice of God in the silence? Psalm 46:10 says, be still and know that I am God. Be still. I find silence and stillness to be incredibly challenging, difficult for me to do. I don't do well sitting in the quiet. Thankfully, though, God has grace on my failures and my abilities when I don't do what I should to listen to Him. But yet God still wants to speak to me in the silence and stillness of life. And that's usually where we can hear Him the most. Today we're going to practice silence and stillness. It might be really hard for you, like it is for me. But I want to encourage you, put your phone down, try this, practice this outside of this group. And it might be something that takes months or years of dedicated practice to be able to hear God well. But that's okay. I'm ahead of you guys in my journey. Let me tell you, it's hard for me sometimes to hear God. Actually, most of the time it's hard. Because silence and stillness is not normal for us. Take some time to practice this, answer some questions, and I look forward to hearing about your experience.